can feed the starving, medicate the wounded, and bury the dead. But without weapons, nothing changes. Self-defense is survival, and survival is freedom. That's the truth today on The 10th Man. You and I need to do better. We need to let the world know there's a problem and it needs fixing fast. The big problem with foreign aid? Well, food and medicine do not make a country safer. An unarmed civilian isn't safe. He's just a sitting duck or a goose to be plucked. You want to know what would save countries like Gaza, Yemen, and Haiti? It's not charity dinners that they need, not even aid convoys. It's guns. Because self-defense isn't just an option, it's actually a human right. It's a human right, a real one. It's not the buzzword slapped onto every cause under the sun. The right to defend yourself is the line between living free and dying helpless. And the tragedy of our world today is this: in too many countries, that human right is denied. The world is not at peace. People suffer and die every day. And the worst part, when help comes, it doesn't solve anything. It only keeps people alive until the next attack. We're talking about foreign aid that's sent to countries that are torn apart, inside and out. Places like Gaza, Haiti, and Yemen that we don't hear enough about, where there are millions of people dead and or displaced. And what does the West send to them? Food and medicine. Nice. Sending food for people under attack and medicine for people who are tormented by oppressors who themselves are armed. After decades of this experiment, and what's the result? Well, if food and medicine were actual solutions, Haiti would be livable, would it not? Wouldn't Gaza be safe for children? And Yemen, wouldn't it have stopped bleeding long ago? And if you think this sounds obvious, or maybe think it's not obvious, but it is obvious. If you think so, you're right. It's too obvious to ignore, yet somehow it's been ignored for decades. Which is why I need your help. If you're listening right now, take a second and tell a friend about this podcast. Share The 10th Man with someone who still thinks food convoys will save the developing world. Because the more people see the truth, the harder it is for politicians and the UN to keep pretending. But turn on the news. In Gaza, tens of thousands dead. 20% of the population facing starvation, we're told. Children, pregnant women, and the elderly collapsing in the streets. Take Haiti, our neighbor. Port-au-Prince is a war zone. Gangs there control everything: the streets, the aid routes, even life and death. They torch whole neighborhoods. They rape girls, turning 12-year-olds into mothers. And they do this because they are armed and their victims are not. Then there's Yemen. 10 years of war, hundreds of thousands dead, millions displaced. The government, the Houthis, the Saudis, the Iranians, and even us Americans, all playing their games while civilians scream and starve. And the world's solution? More food and more water. But the trouble is, food doesn't stop bullets, and medicine doesn't stop machetes. Relief without defense isn't survival, it's just delayed death. Because the only real human right, the one all others depend upon, is the right to self-defense. History proves it. In the late 1700s, American colonists picked up their muskets and beat the most powerful empire on earth. They didn't beg the French for food aid. They asked for weapons and they fought for their freedom. and the Second Amendment locked that right in place forever. In World War II, civilians became soldiers overnight. The nation learned fast, the more armed citizens, the harder it is for an enemy to crush you. By the 20th century, guns in America, they weren't taboo, they were freedom itself. Nobody pushes you around when you're the most armed citizenry on Earth. Meanwhile, nations that stripped their people of that human right, they're the ones being slaughtered today. Ever wonder how cartels seize entire regions? It's not motivational speeches, it's blood, fear, and firepower. The Taliban didn't win Afghanistan with ideas, they won it with guns. After 9/11, the U.S. spent 20 years building an Afghan army with the best weapons money could buy. And when that army collapsed, those weapons didn't vanish. They fell into Taliban hands. Overnight, rusty AKs became American M4s. And with that firepower, the Taliban slammed the country right back into the Dark Ages. That's what happens when the right to self-defense is denied to the people. Imagine if Afghan civilians had been trusted with those rifles. Every home, every street armed. Not begging outsiders to save them, but able to save themselves. And Gaza shows the same truth today. Iran smuggles weapons to Hamas as well as the Houthis. They hold the guns, they hold the food. Ordinary people face rifles with nothing but empty hands, which leads to empty stomachs. But try starving a man who has a rifle, you won't get far. But starve a man with empty hands and you can rule him forever. That's just the math of power. Parasites rule because the people are unarmed. It's that simple. And the tragedy is that most of these men aren't cowards. In Haiti, fathers and sons are already fighting gangs with machetes and scrap pistols, anything they can improvise, and they have even made the gangs bleed. But machete versus AK-47, it's not bravery so much as suicide. But what they lack is not courage, it's the tools to exercise the human right to self-defense. Imagine if they had real firepower, not bags of rice and empty promises. Imagine if they had guns. And about that rice, here's the deeper point. When people aren't living in terror, they can take care of themselves. Give them security, and they'll take care of the food problem. They'll find food, they'll trade, they'll build, they'll farm, and they'll provide for their families on their own. That's human nature. But strip them of the right to defend themselves, and no amount of foreign aid will ever fill the void. Because aid doesn't replace freedom, and you can't eat your way out of tyranny. If your survival depends on handouts, you're not free, you're just temporarily alive. So what would fix Gaza, Haiti, and Yemen? Not food, not water, not another useless UN resolution. Guns. Because if civilians were armed, the script changes. You don't bomb a street that can shoot back, and you don't invade a house that might kill you first. But with no weapons, they don't fight. They kneel, they cry, and they die, because nobody fears the unarmed. Power doesn't answer to prayers, it answers to pain. And if you can't give them pain, you don't matter, and that's the line between victims and threats. And if you want proof that governments actually know this, well, look at Israel. Before October 7th, Israel's civilian gun laws were some of the strictest in the West. A few categories, military veterans, residents of high-risk areas, could get handgun permits, but most civilians never qualified. Then Hamas attacked. Within days, Israel widened eligibility, moved interviews to phone calls, and rushed approvals through. By June 2025, over 403,000 applications had been filed and 165,000 full permits issued. Roughly 335,000 Israelis now legally armed. When survival is on the line, the guns are bad chorus disappears. Israel told its people, arm up, be ready. So if Israel knew that, why not Gaza? Now, if you think the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, is slaughtering helpless Gazans, fine. But in that case, the logic is even stronger. Arm the civilians so they can fight back. Maybe you don't trust people who you don't agree with to have weapons. Well, I do. I trust the average man, the average citizen, to own a firearm so he can protect his wife, his mother, and his sisters. And yes, even in Gaza. And Switzerland proves that it's not just for war zones, far from it. Switzerland is one of the calmest and richest nations on earth. And yet its defense depends on armed citizens. Men serve in the militia, keep rifles at home, and everyone knows this. And that's why no one dares invade Switzerland. Now compare that to Gaza, to Haiti, to Yemen. Billions in aid, but no arms, and so, people slaughtered. And if you've made it this far, you already know the truth the world keeps pretending not to see. Do me a favor, don't keep it to yourself. Share the 10th man with one friend who needs to hear it. Because if an old guy with a microphone in an abandoned chicken coop can figure it out, then maybe, just maybe, the people in charge should too. So let me ask you, if you were in Haiti or Yemen living in fear, would you rather get one meal a day or a weapon to fight for your future? Does it make sense to keep handing your fate to outsiders, or to arm up and take it back? Me, I'd rather see communities where good people are armed than ones where only warlords and soldiers hold the power. Because history's clear. Governments abandon you. Peacekeepers show up late, if at all. Evil doesn't ask permission. Because the streets don't run on peace, they run on power. And the first power, the most basic one, is the human right to self-defense. Because when people can defend themselves, they don't just survive, they thrive. They feed their families, build their homes, and take care of their own necessities because they are no longer living in terror. Deny them that right, and no amount of free food or medicine will ever make them free. This is the 10th Man. Thank you for listening.